Oscar had always dreamed of owning property beyond Earth, but he never imagined it would come at half price. The auction listing had been too good to be true. A fully operational lunar farm in the Copernicus crater region, complete with biodomes, hydroponic systems, and living quarters. The catch? The previous owner had abandoned it in a hurry, leaving behind everything, including whatever had scared them away. Now, standing in the main greenhouse dome, Oscar understood why. The creature perched on the scaffolding 20 feet above was unlike anything in the galactic database. Its body resembled a massive feline, easily the size of a Terran lion, covered in iridescent fur that shifted between deep purples and electric blues. 6 eyes, 3 on each side of its elongated skull, tracked Oscar's every movement. But it was the appendages that made his breath catch. Instead of paws, it had what looked like articulated fingers, each tipped with retractable crystalline claws that caught the artificial sunlight. "Oscar! Don't move!" Gurgi's voice crackled through his helmet comm. She was in the control room, monitoring the situation through the security feeds. "I'm pulling up the atmospheric readings. If that thing is carbon-based, we might be able to—" "It's already seen me," Oscar whispered, his voice tight. The creature tilted its head, and a low rumbling emanated from somewhere deep in its chest, a sound that resonated through the dome's superstructure and into Oscar's bones. Gorgi had been his partner for 3 years, ever since they'd met at the Mars Terraforming Institute. She was brilliant, methodical, and fearless in ways that made Oscar feel simultaneously inadequate and grateful. When he'd won the auction bid, she'd agreed to help him set up the farm without hesitation, even knowing the risks. The previous owner's logs mentioned the Guardian, Gorgi said, her fingers flying across the interface. They thought it was some kind of bioweapon left by the Zentarii Collective. But Oscar, the logs say it only appears when the tomatoes are ripe. Oscar's eyes darted to the hydroponic trays surrounding him. Row upon row of perfectly red tomatoes hung from their vines, ready for harvest. The farm's AI had done its job flawlessly, maintaining optimal conditions even after months of abandonment. The creature leaped. Oscar threw himself backward, crashing into a support column as the alien landed exactly where he'd been standing. But instead of attacking, it did something that made Oscar's mind reel. It delicately plucked a single tomato from the nearest vine with those impossible fingers and brought it to its mouth. The sound it made was unmistakable. It was purring. "Gorgi!" Oscar breathed, slowly getting to his feet. It's eating the tomatoes." "That's impossible. Tomatoes are Earth-specific. The glycoalkaloids alone should be toxic to most known alien biology." But the creature was already reaching for another, its 6 eyes half closing in what could only be described as bliss. Oscar watched, transfixed, as the fearsome beast delicately harvested tomato after tomato, eating each one with obvious pleasure. Then it looked at Oscar, and something impossible happened. The creature's form shimmered, and suddenly a holographic interface appeared in the air between them. Symbols Oscar didn't recognize scrolled past, followed by crude pictograms, a human figure, a tomato, and what looked like a thumbs up. "It's trying to communicate," Gurgi said, wonder replacing the tension in her voice. "Oscar, I think it's been waiting for someone to come back and harvest the crop." Oscar took a tentative step forward. The creature watched but didn't retreat. Another step, then another. When he was close enough to touch it, the alien lowered its massive head, and Oscar realized something that made his eyes suddenly blur with tears. It was lonely. The holographic interface changed, showing images that told a story. The Zentarii Collective hadn't created a weapon. They'd created a companion, an agricultural AI housed in biological form, designed to tend and protect crops in hostile environments. But the Zentarii had fallen centuries ago, and this creature had been left behind, faithfully maintaining the farm, waiting for someone who would understand. The tomatoes weren't just food. They were a gift, a peace offering, a desperate attempt to connect. Oscar reached out with a trembling hand and touched the creature's head. The fur was warm, almost electric under his fingers, and the purring intensified. Tears rolled down his cheeks, fogging his helmet visor. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry you've been alone." Georgi's voice was gentle in his ear. "Oscar, the farm's AI has been broadcasting a distress signal, not for help, for someone to come home. This creature has been keeping everything running, hoping its family would return." Oscar understood then why the previous owner had fled. They'd seen a monster instead of a miracle. They'd looked at this magnificent being and saw only fear, never stopping to wonder why a supposed weapon would carefully tend tomatoes and wait patiently on the scaffolding. Humans had always been good at two things: making mistakes and learning from them. "Georgi, cancel the sale listing," Oscar said, his voice steady despite the tears. "We're keeping the farm, all of it." "Including the Guardian?" Oscar looked into the creature's 6 eyes and saw intelligence, loneliness, and hope reflected back at him. "Especially the Guardian," he said. "Every farm needs a good cat." The creature's purr became a rumble of contentment that shook tomatoes loose from their vines. And somewhere in the lunar soil beneath their feet, Oscar swore he could feel the moon itself welcoming them home.